Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're cutting straight through all that noise to find the actual biological sweet spot for body fat. We're looking past those impossible, heavily edited physiques you see all over your feed to uncover what your body genuinely needs to thrive. It all boils down to one absolutely crucial question. What is the healthiest body fat percentage? Well, finding the real answer takes us on a pretty fascinating journey through human physiology. So stick with me through the science here, because at the very end of this explainer, I'm going to reveal the ultimate, perfectly sustainable number. Okay, first up, we need to just systematically tear down this massive fitness myth. The expectation society constantly feeds us is that having a shredded, single-digit body fat physique automatically means you're in peak health. But the biological reality? Extreme leanness does not equal extreme health. Actually, scratch that. It's the opposite. Most people who diet their way down into single digits are quite literally making themselves incredibly unhealthy. It's what we call the bodybuilder illusion. You see these fitness models and competitors looking incredibly lean, and you kind of just assume that's their everyday reality. Let me tell you, it's not. They're literally timing that absolutely shredded physical state for one specific competition day or one specific photo shoot. It's a temporary peak. They do not walk around looking like that on a random Tuesday, because trying to maintain 4 or 5% body fat year-round is not only insanely difficult, it's deeply unhealthy for the human body. See, if you try to force your body into that extreme state, you pay a brutal biological toll. I mean, just look at the hidden costs. For the average person, dropping into those single digits triggers a severe drop in testosterone, completely throwing your other critical hormones off balance. Your endocrine system basically hits the panic button. You're looking at massive energy crashes where you just feel like absolute garbage all day, plus a noticeable decline in your cognitive ability. So from a hormonal and energy perspective, starving yourself down to this level is just a complete disaster. Now, sure, there are always exceptions to the rule, which brings us to this wild anecdote from our source material about a friend who worked as a barber. This guy naturally sat at around 7% body fat, totally shredded. He only did Muay Thai maybe a couple times a week, trained a bit, yet he bragged about crushing an entire pizza right before bed. Crazy, right? But the point here is that some people are simply genetic outliers with lightning-fast metabolisms. If you or I tried to follow his routine and eat whole pizzas at midnight, we wouldn't get shredded, we'd just get fat. So whatever you do, don't compare your biology to genetic anomalies. All right, moving into Section 1, the science of body fat, which, as we'll see, is way more than just stored energy. This completely shifts how we need to view fat. Most of us think of body fat as just this passive storage unit for extra calories, right? Kind of like a biological backpack you just carry around. But medically speaking, your body fat is actually an active endocrine organ. It's a living tissue that secretes hormones and chemical signals directly into your bloodstream. That means your body fat is actively regulating your biology every single minute of the day. And because fat is this active organ, having too much of it completely alters your internal chemistry. Your fat cells, or adipose cells, produce proteins called cytokines. Normally, cytokines handle cellular communication, but here's where it gets dangerous. When you carry excessive body fat, your fat cells go into overdrive and overproduce these cytokines. This literally turns your fat into an inflammatory tissue, triggering systemic inflammation throughout your entire body. Let's walk through how this sets off a really dangerous biological chain reaction. First up, carrying excess fat sparks that systemic inflammation we just talked about. Second, that directly inflames your blood vessels. Third, all this internal stress ramps up your endogenous cholesterol. And finally, step 4, this whole cascade results in a severe drop in your cardiovascular health. The data shows that these major health risks usually kick into high gear right around the time someone crosses that 25 to 30% body fat threshold. Which brings us to Section 2, the obesity paradox, looking at extra weight versus muscle mass. So there's this really common, logical assumption people make. The myth is basically, hey, if you're lugging around 50 or 100 extra pounds of body fat all day, your underlying muscles must be getting absolutely huge and strong just from carrying that weight, right? Well, the medical reality, which we can clearly see on CT scans comparing lean and obese individuals, is the exact opposite. Being obese actually causes severe muscle atrophy. Your muscles literally shrink. I know, how is that even possible? Well, the key here is this fascinating insulin resistance mechanism. When someone is taking in a massive surplus of calories, but they aren't actively stimulating their muscles, their fat tissue starts acting like a giant sponge. It just absorbs most of the calories. The insulin sensitivity in the muscle cells takes a nosedive, while the insulin sensitivity in the fat cells shoots way up. So the fat basically hoards all the nutrients to grow, actively starving the muscle cells, which forces them to atrophy and waste away. And that is incredibly dangerous because muscle isn't just about looking good at the beach. It's a vital, absolute requirement for overall health and longevity. This is exactly why strength training is so crucial for literally everyone. Even if someone is obese and completely refuses to change their diet, just getting in the gym and pushing their muscles hard can dramatically improve their cardiovascular health and stop that dangerous muscle atrophy dead in its tracks. All right, let's head into section 3, the Goldilocks zone, finding your sustainable sweet spot. Let's map out this whole body fat spectrum. So anything under 10% is just way too low for the average person to maintain without feeling absolutely miserable. Then on the high end, once you cross that 25 to 30% mark, you're heading straight into the danger zone of systemic inflammation. So the generally safe, broad health range sits right there in the middle, between 10 and 25%. Now, before we reveal that absolute perfect target number, I do want to throw in a quick reminder. Even within that healthy range, your genetics are going to dictate your ultimate physical appearance. Some people just naturally carry more fat cells, or they have excess skin. Think about muscle anatomy for a second. Did you know that even The Rock, despite being incredibly lean and massive, doesn't actually have a super visible six-pack? That's just because his genetics don't give him those deep tendinous inscriptions in his abs. You really can't fight your genetics, folks, but you can certainly optimize them. So, drum roll, please. What is the ultimate, ideal body fat percentage that most of us should be aiming for? That magic number that perfectly balances health, appearance, and keeping your sanity? It's 15%. Now, why 15%? Well, let me break down exactly why this is the ultimate sweet spot. First off, it's highly attainable for almost anyone without having to completely turn your life upside down. And more importantly, it's easy to maintain over the long haul. Remember, sustainability is the real secret to health. At 15%, you're not unhealthily shredded, but you still have great visible muscle tone. You optimize your functional, everyday physical capacity, and you completely maximize your internal cardiovascular and hormonal health. It's just the absolute pinnacle of physiological balance. Which leaves us with a pretty important final thought to ponder. I want you to take a hard look at your own fitness goals. Are you chasing a truly sustainable lifestyle? One that's going to keep you healthy, strong, and energized for decades to come? Or are you sacrificing your internal health, your hormones, and quite frankly, your happiness, all to chase some temporary, impossible physique that really only belongs on a heavily edited magazine cover? Because at the end of the day, true health isn't found out there on the dangerous extremes. True health is always found in balance. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you all next time.